All right, we're back. Brief little intermission. I don't know what happened. Peter want to act like I ain't have no storage space, and I know I did not buy this machine to not have any storage space. Either way, I think I was talking about uh with the client asking your therapist you have space to critique them or bring up concerns that you have about saying your journey or your process in therapy, and also if it's not a good fit during the middle of the time of therapy, you know what I'm saying? So you just want to make sure that you have that autonomy and ask that around that. But those are the big questions that you can ask, whether in a consult call, some people do it, or in the initial session, right? And I know a lot of people sometimes, have went through a lot of therapists and they cycling through. They want to tell a story, over and over again. I hear you on that. But also understand too that therapists need that information historically to better serve you and then also show where they're going. Now, these are some of these questions that you can also ask from a medical professional as well, um, when you are going to see the doctor, right? Like, what does these terminology mean, right? If I have a certain issue, do you specialize in that? What is your experience working with a person who has this diagnosis or he has these set of issues? What type of treatment do you recommend, or what do you specialize in, and can you explain it to me as if I've never heard it before, right? What do you feel about me trying this new exercise, this new diet? What do you feel about my blood work levels, right? Is there anything cause for concern? And expressing your concerns with your medical providers. I think as black men, sometimes we just sit there and take it, and just whatever the doctor says, or sometimes or whatever the professional or the therapist say, we just go with it, right? Sometimes, most times, we be like, no, I don't believe in that, or that's not going to, I don't think I'll have that. But if you don't think you have something, if you don't think that that's it, discuss it with the medical professional. Discuss it with the therapist. If you don't think that that thing is what it is, and you have concerns for something else, let's explore it. You know what I'm saying? If you want to go get a second opinion from a medical professional, sure, be it. But in the therapy room, let's explore it, right? Let's have a conversation around it and what you are feeling it. I understand sometimes that black men come into the therapy space and they don't specifically know what they need to work on. That is perfectly fine. So let's explore it and work through it, right? That's okay. Sometimes you might not know everything you need to want to work on at that point, but you need to do something. And I think that's up to you to let that therapist know that's where I'm at, so that the therapist can figure out, okay, where to start from. Also keep in mind too, that whatever you come in there to work on, right, you can also talk about other things that are bothering you too, as long as it fits within the treatment plan. But sometimes some things might not fit within the treatment plan, right? Some things might not. Some topics might come up that don't fit in the treatment plan and objectives, right? So do we have time and space to talk about things that might come up outside of what's in the treatment plan and objectives? That's another question that you can ask your therapist in that initial session or consult call. If I have something that arises that is outside of the thing that I express to you, we put in a treatment plan, or we discuss that we want to talk about, do I have space to talk about it here? Because you got to think all of this is connected in some form or fashion, regardless if it's not on the ideal top 3 things that you want to work on or top 4 or 5 things, right? I personally like to work with the first 3 things and go in order down, but we leave space and opportunity for other stuff to come in there as well, because usually they're tied together typically. But you might not want to talk about the first 3 things, right? So let's talk about this other thing that's bothering you. Let's talk about how you feel today. Let's talk about what's going good, right? Sometimes therapists, clients then come in, they don't want to share the wins. Share the wins with me. I want to hear what's going good. You know what I'm saying? Because that's going to only build up your strength and resiliency, but it's also going to build up how you view and work on things. If you got some wins in there, We can work with that, right? And so, managing that as well. Like, is there space for me to have conversations about other things that might not be on the list of priorities that we didn't want to work on, that we did want to work on, but it's just, something that I need to talk about. Yes, you can talk about stress at your job, fellas. Sometimes I think that we don't think that that's normal, that it's normal that we can't talk about that. But if you feel stress at your job, we can talk about it, right? And that's primary. A lot of people deal with stress at the job. I think Mental Health America did a report a couple of years ago saying that 63% of people report employer workplace stress. So work is stressful for people. But just because sometimes we normalize, oh, that's just work, or you just got to work through it, get your check, going home, we think that we can't talk about that in therapy. No, let's talk about that, because that's a source of your stressor in your life. We got to figure out how we can work with that. Is it an attitude thing of like somebody's bothering me, or like I feel like I'm not reaching my full potential, or I'm being demoted, I'm losing my job, laid off, or I'm being discriminated on, somebody is expressing microaggressions to me, or whatever else. There's a lot of things that Black professionals put up with, especially Black men and women, in these employer spaces that affects our mental health. No job is worth your mental health, but when you got bills to pay and a mortgage to pay or rent to pay or a lease to pay, you know what I'm saying? You ain't got no choice at some point. And it's like, how do I work within that, work through that? Um, and then I might not be able to jump to job. Sometimes we got to be a little bit more realistic with people too. Think that it's not as easy as it seems sometimes to make moves the way people kind of say you should just make a move. You know what I'm saying? In today's time, you're not guaranteed that next job sometimes. You know what I'm saying? You still, it still could be a time that you might have a gap. So you want to just, look at that, and we could talk about that. You could talk about, of course, your family issues and relationships, self-esteem, how you feel about yourself. You could talk about all of that in session. And those are places where you can start at to make this thing a little bit more easier to get into. But those are some questions and topics and statements that you can start with to help, get more comfortable, ease some of those nerves going into therapy. And the last thing I want to say about that is also understanding that therapists are not perfect. Mental professionals are not perfect. We are not also robots. We don't know everything and all of it. So there might be some points in time where you might have to find new therapists. You might take 2-3 times to go see a therapist to figure out the right fit. But asking those questions, making sure that therapist aligns with what you're looking to seek out of getting out of therapy, even if you don't know, right? Helping them, allowing them to answer some of those questions for you, because some of those questions are more so reflective for them, so that you can process on, versus you coming with everything and still not knowing, the extent of what you need in that moment. Because sometimes we, as clients, we don't know, right? And so it's our job as a therapist and the mental health professionals to kind of flush that out and help you, work through that stuff. But those questions I talked about earlier, I think are great starter questions, great consult questions, and just great overall to see, what's happening, right? And you can even ask them if they take your insurance, what the insurance benefits look like for them in their practice, things like that too, as well. But these are some of those items that can help, calm those nerves down a little bit, so that you can feel like you're in a safe space, but also you feel like you're in good hands and you're gonna get the work done that you need to get done. Okay. Again, this is just some basic foundational stuff. It can be added to, you can take away from it. You can do whatever you wish with this information and knowledge, right? But let's not be so super critical or super stringent on what it should be and what it should look like, and not just help give people what they need. Because I've heard a lot of people, he's my guy is not the first person to reach out and let me know or asking me what he should be looking for in a therapist. And so I think that it's just something that's just foundational for Black men to kind of help, and for anybody else, I think too, but just especially for Black men to kind of give them some questions and a mouthpiece to help them, guide what they want to see out this therapeutic process with their therapist. And then also, rightfully so, some of the therapists also can utilize it as well. New therapists, or current therapists that's been in the game for a minute, they might say, okay, this is something that I want to address in my consult calls, or in my, my intake session, so that person and that client can feel more, welcome. And I used to do that in my intake sessions, where I would kind of explain my models, my interventions, how I establish the trust, safety, and rapport, what to expect, a bunch of things like that. But that's kind of part of our process anyway, as well, not just in the paperwork, but just speaking it too. So if you got questions on anything, please feel free to reach out to me. Let me know. Hope that this video was informative. Hope that it was helpful as well. And just let me know if you need more of these kind of basic, regular conversation style starters to get you more acclimated to something that can be a little bit scary, but it's worth it. I promise you, it's definitely worth it. All right. Make sure y'all go like, share, subscribe to the podcast. Let me know what you think. YouTube, the G.Taylor Show. Also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all your digital streaming platforms. We are the G.Taylor Show. Reach out, let me know, like, share, subscribe, and we'll keep this thing rolling. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.